Welcome to the Sci-Fi Evolution channel. The wind in the hollow distance was a thief. He stole the moisture from your tongue and the warmth from your skin. If you stood still long enough, he even stole your patience. Technically, the hollow distance was the moon, one of the outer fragments orbiting the gas giant Typhon. However, planet sounded better in the stories. Kane Horian, a man who lived for stories, stepped out from behind the jagged hull of a cargo ship, his boots crunching on the rusty gravel that crumbled like burnt sugar. His hand hovered over the holster on his hip, although, to be honest, there was only a broken stun gun and half a pack of nicotine gum inside. In his other hand, he held a fruit that looked suspiciously like a cross between a kiwi and a cactus, from which he took a bite. It hissed, and he spat it out, making a mental note. "A note for myself," he muttered. "If it makes a sound, maybe you shouldn't eat it." The wind responded with a cry that wasn't the wind at all. Then she appeared. She moved with the grace of menace, dressed in poetry and fluidity, intentionally and completely without humor. Her armor shimmered because of the interlacing hexagonal panels, gold and slate, and her face was striking and unreadable. Her long, slightly curved ears, like the sails of ancient ships, indicated that she was from here. Standing 12 feet away from him, she pointed something at his chest that was definitely not a greeting. "You're Kane Horian," she said, her accent turning consonants into tiny threats. He scratched his jaw and replied, "It depends on the circumstances. Are you here to arrest me, marry me, or kill me?" She didn't blink and instead took a step forward, activating the blade that lit up in her hand like a whisper catching fire. Smooth and purple, it was a weapon that spoke of her intentions. And buzzing with a promise, Kane said, "Okay, cutting so cutting." He stepped back, thinking. There were a lot of things he was good at, like sarcasm, improvisation, and pretending he knew where not to press. However, his skills in dueling were somewhere between understanding tax laws and winning a dance battle with a battle droid. However, bluffing was a close relative of bravery, so he reached for the sleeve of his jacket, pretending to adjust it. That's when something happened. The tattoo flashed on his forearm. A soft blue light coiled like an ancient constellation. The alien suddenly remembered its purpose and froze. Her blade in her hand flickered and dimmed. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with a recognition so sharp it could have drawn blood. Kane blinked, surprised. "Do you know this thing? If it means a free sandwich," then he underestimated it. She didn't answer. She was just looking at the mark, and there was something calculating in her expression. With a hint of disbelief, he told her that this was not a normal situation. "Oops, you've stumbled upon an alien duel," she said. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "The echo lives on." Cautiously, Kane stepped back. "Okay, I do not know what that means, but it sounds too dramatic for this situation. I'm just trying to earn some credits, and maybe not die today." The wind howled again, and behind them, the crashed cargo ship groaned. The silence stretched between them like a tripwire. No one moved. No one lowered their weapons. Kane looked at her, then at the glowing tattoo on his arm. "Good," he said. "So, are we suspending the duel or changing the rules? Because I'd rather not fight right now." She didn't answer, but the fire in her blade went out, and so did something else in her eyes. The moment, the mission, the certainty, whatever game they were playing, had just begun. He wasn't the only one. The one who didn't know the rules. The two of them stood there in the settling dust like statues, realizing that they didn't belong in the same place. Somewhere in the distance, the wind stopped screaming and dropped to a whimper, sending small swirls of dust around their feet. Kane tried not to breathe too heavily. He felt that if he coughed even once, this moment might collapse under its own weight. The alien, who was taller than him by a full argument and half, lowered her weapon with unnatural stiffness, as if her body was protesting the idea of not killing him on principle. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes, those strange, mirrored irises that reflected light like two pools of liquid mercury, seemed to crack. "You shouldn't have that mark," she said softly. "You can't have that mark." Cain looked down at his glowing hand. The tattoo pulsed faintly, not like a machine, but rather like a heartbeat or a beacon, or a mistake from a previous life that had just returned home. "Well," he said, scratching behind his ear. "In my defense, I got it with a free voucher for a drink at the bar on Vargas 3, or maybe it was just a serious hangover. To be honest, everything is a blur after the fourth synthetic margarita." She didn't laugh, and at that moment he was almost certain that her species had no sense of humor. "What's your name?" he asked, hoping for something less sinister than she who hunts the end. She hesitated, then said, "Valera." Cain blinked. "Wow, okay, that's it. A name with several syllables. I like it. It sounds beautiful, something like shampoo and water. As if you had a child with a musical instrument." Still nothing. She looked at his hand again, then without warning, reached into her hip pouch, pulled out what looked like a metal acorn fused with a music box, turned it once, and it unfolded into a floating disc with an interface made of solid light in the air. The building looked ancient, as if it had been designed before the days of computers. Valera typed a series of strange symbols on the wall. She then scanned the tattoo with deliberate slowness. The interface responded instantly, flashing brightly, then displaying something impossible. A star map, or more precisely, a 12-fold spiral, a constellation that no longer existed. Its stars turned into supernovae centuries ago. "What is this?" asked Cain, his voice low and serious. Valera didn't look at him. Her fingers trembled over the interface as she explained. "This is a summoning beacon, genetically encoded. He was only tied to one bloodline, the 12-fold echo. They were peacemakers, scientists, warriors, a bridge between our peoples, until they were destroyed." There was a tremor in her voice that Cain didn't think was possible for someone like her. "They were our protectors, our guardians. We have to find them and bring them back. That's what a lighthouse is for. He will lead us to them." "My mom," he thought. "Okay, but why is there a relic on my skin from the Galactic Peace Club that died before my grandfather's Wi-Fi password was invented?" She turned off the interface with a sudden movement. The disc curled back into the shape of an acorn and disappeared into her pouch. "My mother was part of the echo," she said tonelessly. "She died in the fall. We thought all traces were lost. You're not one of us." But she looked at him again, this time with less suspicion and more horror. Cain shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I'm just a guy with debts, a semi-legal shipping license, and a bad habit of choosing the wrong flavor of freeze-dried noodles. I am not some chosen relic of cosmic history. I can barely operate the toaster without turning on the fire extinguishing system." Valera's hand jerked towards her blade again, probably reflexively. "You may not be one of them," she said, "but this mark is, and now that it's activated, others will see it too. We need to leave now." "Wait," Cain said, raising his hands. "I literally just met you, and 2 minutes ago you tried to kill me. Now you want to go on a space trip because my hand is glowing? Yeah, you know how weird that sounds, right?" She stared at him, her expression unreadable. "Do you want to die here?" Cain looked around. The sun was setting, and the shadows were lengthening like claws. Behind them, the wrecked cargo ship groaned again, this time not like metal, but rather like something moving inside. "Okay," he said, tapping the glowing tattoo on his arm. "I think I agree, Earwig," he added. She narrowed her eyes at him. "Don't call me that anymore." Cain grinned, nodding. "Then lead the way. The ship is called Honest Mistake, which, in my opinion, is the most accurate name for any ship. It rattled when it was idling, and groaned when it accelerated, squealing like an angry kettle as they took off into space. I was trying to open the cargo hatch. The ship was old-fashioned and made you feel nostalgic for bygone days. However, he was still flying. Valera sat across from Kane in the cramped cabin, watching the stars fly by with a level of suspicion usually reserved for criminals and salads. Her armor was drawn into a smooth, dark, and seamless bottom layer, and her hair, a deep black with silver strands running through it like frost, was pulled back to reveal the sharp curve of her elongated ears. "You don't trust me," Kane said, putting his boots on the console and popping a peanut-sized pellet of ration into his mouth. "I understand. I don't trust myself either." Valera did not look away from the porthole. "You joke too much. It's a defense mechanism." Kane chuckled. "You noticed." She looked at him, and for a moment he thought he could almost see her smiling. It could have been a muscle spasm. It was hard to tell with her three-dimensional image of a nearby system. He leaned forward. "We're about 2 hops from Enter Station. I have a contact there. He's pretty suspicious. He has more secrets than teeth. Perfect for investigating mysterious glowing tattoos and sudden prophecies of doom." "I don't need criminals," Valera said. "Then you won't like this plan." He turned to access the ship's main log, but it sparkled with dramatic sophistication. Kane jerked his hand away. "That's right, I forgot. Don't touch the panel when it's buzzing like an angry beehive." Valera got up and went to the cargo hold without saying another word. Kane followed her, mostly out of curiosity and a little out of boredom. The cargo hold of Honest Mistake was a mess, with items that suggested bad decisions. Mismatched drawers, a half-disassembled robot bartender named Simon, and a drawer marked, "Do not open if lit." Valera knelt down against one of the walls. Valera's eyes widened. "The vault shouldn't fall?" Kane leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. Valera's gaze shifted to Kane, her expression serious. "This is a place of great power, a repository of knowledge and technology beyond our understanding. It has been hidden for centuries, and its location is a closely guarded secret. The vault is a symbol of our people's resilience and our ability to survive. This is our lifeline, our hope for the future." Kane's eyes widened. "You mean like a secret repository of advanced technology?" Valera nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and caution. "Yes, it is a repository of knowledge and technology beyond our understanding. It has been hidden for centuries, and its location is a closely guarded secret. The vault is a symbol of our people's resilience and our ability to survive. This is our lifeline, our hope for the future." Kane's eyes widened. "You mean like a secret repository of advanced technology?" Valera nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and caution. "Yes, it is a repository of knowledge and technology beyond our understanding. It has been hidden for centuries, and its location is a closely guarded secret. The vault is a symbol of our people's resilience and our ability to survive. This is our lifeline, our hope for the future." Valera's jaw clenched as the sound of the device turned into a mechanical squeal before abruptly ending. "Well, it definitely wasn't a good omen," Kane remarked, sitting cross-legged as if they were about to do yoga, and facing the inevitability of death. "I have no idea what happened to her. She disappeared during the fall, as did most of the Echo. We were told that people had betrayed them," Valera muttered. Kane frowned. "I've been told that people have invented breakfast cereal and sarcasm. It's ironic how history tends to leave out important details." They were silent for a moment. The only sound was the rhythmic hum of the ship's air conditioning system, which always sounded like it was sighing in frustration. Finally, Kane said, "I've never heard of it. It looks like a cold planet with a tragic past that was erased from the star charts centuries ago." Valera added, "My people consider it a myth." "Great," Kane replied, clapping his hands. "So we're chasing a myth?" She looked at him again, this time for real. "Why aren't you afraid?" she asked. He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "Oh, I'm terrified," he replied. "I just hide it behind witty lines and reckless confidence." Valera thought about it. "That explains a lot," she said. "Indeed," Kane agreed, glancing at the memory cube that was still flickering on the floor. "Indeed, it is." The airlock opened with its usual flourish. Kane entered the lounge on the lower deck of the Wakati. The room was a storage room that had been converted into a lounge, but still retained some of its original features. Someone, probably Kane or someone with bad taste, fixed a synthetic wood table to the floor and covered one wall with it. Hand-drawn star maps were spread out on the table, with the words, "There's something here," in the margins. Kai was sitting uncomfortably on the edge of the bench, like someone who had just realized he was sitting on a chair. He woke up 12 hours ago and hasn't spoken since. This was understandable, considering that he had been in suspended animation for 3 centuries and probably still believed that entertainment consisted of holographic puppet shows. Kane handed him a ration, saying, "Try this. It's the least offensive taste we have." Kai sniffed the ration and said, "It smells like a compressed mushroom." Valera, who entered the room with a neutral expression on her face, looked at Kai, then at Kane, and nodded significantly at the ration. Did he remember anything? Kane shrugged, saying, "Just that he hates gluten substitutes." Kai took a bite of the candy bar and grimaced, saying, "I remember fragments, names, symbols, a storage location. I think I died there, or should have." "It's amazing," Kane remarked. "Nothing starts the day like breakfast and philosophical trauma." Kai closed his eyes. The faint light of his tattoo, a spiral identical to the tattoos of Kane and Valera, illuminated for a moment before disappearing again. "Do you have any idea what that means?" asked Kane. Kai opened his eyes. His voice was low and hoarse. "The mark, the memory cube, what did she call it?" he asked. "It was a pact, a bond forged between our species after the fall of the oracles. We were tasked with preserving what was left, not only knowledge, but also harmony and balance. We were a bridge." Valera's expression darkened, and then she fell silent. Kai nodded. "Because of love. At least that's what they told me." Kane raised an eyebrow. "Love? This is unexpected. In most galactic collapses, it's usually greed, pride, or some catastrophic mistake involving wormholes and dairy products." Kai didn't answer. His gaze was haunting. Valera turned away and activated the star chart on the central table. She came to life, casting twinkling constellations on their faces. "In the center, Niphorus," she said, "is a planet that shouldn't be there. The signal came from a dead zone. It shouldn't exist." Kane replied, "Things that shouldn't exist tend to be both uncomfortable and real." As if to emphasize his point, the ship jerked, and a low, throbbing alarm began to sound. It wasn't the kind of signal that would make you jump out of your seat in fear, but rather one that would annoy you a little. The kind that usually meant space weather or forgetting to close the snack box before takeoff. Valera was already in the cockpit, saying, "Approach warning. Something is tracking us." Kane followed her, muttering, "Great. Can't we spend one day without being haunted by cosmic mysteries?" The viewing screen came to life, showing a small, sleek ship, unmarked and matte black, moving like a predator that had skipped lunch. "Let me guess," Kane said. "Not one of our people." Valera stared. "It's worse. This is the Shadow-class time catcher. It follows the time signal." Kane's jaw dropped. "Is the time catcher like in a time-manipulating ship?" "Yes, it's real," she said. "It's a forbidden technology." Kane could not have imagined that the ship would make such a sound. However, an honest mistake made a noise that could only be described as a cry of existential anguish. The ship's structure shuddered, warning lights flickered, and a rhythmic thudding began to emanate from the floor panels. Valera was at the helm, her hands moving with mechanical precision on the navigation grid. The ship seemed to be going through a small panic attack, and Valera was in control of everything. She spoke without looking back. "We can't outrun the time catcher. His engine slides between time pockets, and he's not chasing us. He's waiting for us to arrive." Kane, sitting in the co-pilot seat, blinked, trying to keep a sarcastic expression on his face, but feeling a hint of anxiety. "Well, if he's waiting, can we send him a message about canceling all future meetings? Or maybe even fake our deaths? Or better yet, let's fake our deaths in a realistic way." Kai, sitting behind them, was silent, his eyes glued to the curved trajectory of the hunter ship on the screen. The ship wasn't just following them. It was sinking, reflecting their movements like a reflection that refuses to be recognized. "He's leveling up," Kai muttered. "He's trying to stack us," Kane said. "It doesn't feel like a fun loop. It's like one of those loops where I end up talking to a slightly more frustrated version of myself." Kai's eyes were glowing faintly now, and the mark on his forearm pulsed in sync with Kane's tattoo. "We need to jump." "But where to?" asked Valera, her voice calm but sharp. "We don't have the coordinates of Niferus yet. The system is hidden." Kane reached into the side panel and pulled out an old, flickering data chip that looked like it had been chewed by a small animal with an electrical alarm. "Do you remember? My suspicious friend from Enter Station gave it to me a few years ago in exchange for not reporting it for smuggling jelly bees. He inserted it into the console. He said it pointed to a dead world that refused to be mapped." Valera looked at him, as if she was reviewing every life choice that had led to this moment. However, the navigation system blinked and sounded a weak signal. The coordinates were confirmed, and the computer cheerfully announced, "Warning, the destination may not exist. Continue anyway." Kane was always smiling. The stars outside the ship twisted as the engine charged, dragging gravity and intelligence with it. Valera fixed herself, and Kai just closed his eyes. The jump hit them like a sideways heartbeat, an instant jerk through a place that smelled faintly of ozone and a sense of déjà vu. For a moment, the honest mistake ceased to exist, or perhaps it existed everywhere at once. When the ship returned to normal, the silence seemed wrong. Niferus loomed outside, not a planet, but a secret that had forgotten how to stay hidden. Black and purple clouds swirled over the jagged surface with obsidian peaks and silver canyons. Lightning arced between the monoliths, not from the weather, but from temporary instability. The planet shimmered at the edges. Kane, blinking between reality shots, asked questions like everyone else. Valera, her voice gentle and respectful, leaned forward. "That's it, the last stop on the path of the Echo. The vault lies under the charred spires." Kai moved, but it wouldn't be unguarded, of course. That would be too convenient. The ship shuddered again, this time from something other than mechanical causes. Mental pressure, similar to a memory trying to break into the present. Kane clutched his head, wondering if anyone else could hear the whisper. Valera nodded, confirming that this was a memory storage facility. Kane muttered, "I can barely remember the code for my locker, let alone this type of architecture." The descent was difficult. The ship resisted their advance. Every meter was like a surrender negotiation. But they made it, landing in a crevice between two jagged spires. Outside, a field of luminous dust floated in the air, like stardust frozen in time. Kane, still wearing a vest with more pockets than necessary, turned to the group. "Okay, what's the plan?" "We will enter the ancient vault and open it. The secrets of a long-forgotten civilization and the hope that no one will be possessed by a ghostly librarian." Valera hastily loaded her weapon. Kai opened the hatch, and cold light poured in, accompanied by a sound that was not quite like the wind. It was something more ancient. Kane sighed. Of course, the vaults don't come with brochures. The light outside was not ordinary light. It shimmered like a memory, pale and silver, casting no shadows, making the obsidian cliffs of Niferus seem suspended in thought rather than rooted in reality. Cain stepped onto the ground, immediately regretting it. The soil, or what it was called, had the texture of fine ash and the temperature of the freezer's back wall. His shoes sank half an inch, making a soft hiss as if apologizing for being there. "This place feels like it's waiting for something," he said, checking his scanner, which immediately decided to turn off again. "It's not just waiting," Valera whispered. "It's listening." Behind them, Kai walked with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to the edge of time. The mark on his arm, similar to those of Cain and Valera, was pulsing again, this time in a slow, rhythmic beat. As they went deeper into the ash-covered spires, which were taller than skyscrapers and shaped like cathedral bones, strange symbols appeared on the rock. Glowing lines formed where they had not been before. Cain pointed to one. "So, are these runes or just evil space graffiti?" Kai didn't answer. He looked at the towering arch ahead, its curve incredibly curved inwards, forming a gate. The entrance to the cell shimmered at the edges like a mirage in the heat. It was dark inside, not empty, but compressed. Something was breathing behind him, soundlessly, but with a strong presence. Cain hesitated, thinking that going through with this was a terrible idea. "Yes," Valera said, taking a step forward. "It's fantastic." When they passed under the archway, the world changed. It didn't explode or melt, but it changed. The cold was gone. Gravity, too. Cain hovered for a moment, his limbs flailing, before a gentle force set him in place like marble on velvet. Stars floated past his eyes, each flashing with a memory, a name, or a face he didn't know, but somehow knew. They found themselves inside a chamber, huge and immeasurable, with walls that were an abstract concept. The architecture seemed to change depending on who was looking at it. Cain saw the stairs, where Kai saw the bridge, and Valera walked without hesitation. "Minds," said Kai. "We shape them." "Well, that's a relief," Cain muttered. "I hope they enjoy their breakfast of chaos and unresolved emotions." In the center of the room was a crystalline structure, as tall as a man, shaped like a spiral twisted inwards. Energy flowed from its edges in thin strands of blue and golden light, twisting in the air like a spider's web. The lights pulsed in time with the tattoos on their arms. "This is the core," Valera said. Her voice became softer, respectful, as if she was afraid to speak too loudly in such a sacred place. Kai reached out to touch one of the light strands. Images exploded in the air, holographic memories, echoes of battles, humans and aliens standing together in unity, a star system disintegrating into war, and in her heart, a woman with long ears and twilight eyes, raising her hand in a sign of peace, only to be struck down. Valera shuddered. "This is my mother," she said. The memory shifted. A familiar figure appeared, shrouded and faceless. Cain recognized the silhouette. Then, the vault released a soundless, ancient pressure, as if the planet itself was groaning. A ripple ran through the air, or what was air in this place. The images shattered, reshaping themselves into new shapes. A warning about the future, a glimpse of the traitor's true form. The universe seemed to split apart. The vault was burning from the inside. Kai stumbled, already beginning to rewrite reality. Valera drew her weapon, determined to stop him. Cain raised an eyebrow, not knowing how to deal with someone who could edit reality. Kai replied in a hollow voice, saying that they could take root in the truth. Cain blinked, confused and scared, but also determined to do the right thing. The vault continued to pulse, the door opening into the fabric of reality. The wall is at the far end. This time it was tangible, solid shape, with a metallic sheen and a faint echo. There was something heavy inside. Cain took a deep breath, readying his weapon. If this door opens to a fun room with free treats, he will personally write an apology to the universe. They went right through. The last fight has begun. The space behind the door was not a room. It was a point of convergence. The fabric of reality was folding inwards. Time seemed to stretch out like the skin of a drum. The floor didn't exist, but it supported their steps. The stars moved slowly across the dark ceiling, distant and disapproving. In the center, on top of a broken platform that seemed to hang in the air, as if gravity was just a guess, stood a traitor. He seemed almost human, tall and slender, with features that were so familiar that Kane's instincts kicked in. He wore the 12X Echo emblem on his chest, but the light from it flickered and distorted, as if the memory of what she had once imagined hurt him. Kane took a step forward, his boots echoing in a space where echoes shouldn't exist. "You're a little too well-dressed for betrayal," the traitor said, turning to Kane, who saw his own reflection in the other's eyes, not identical, but close, with the same bone structure, mouth, and even the same crooked nose that he broke on a cargo hatch when he was 12. However, there were also people with more discerning eyes who witnessed too much and postponed all the failed elections, akin to keeping checks. Kane muttered, "Space will give me an evil doppelganger." "It's a typical move," he said. "You are my shadow." The man's voice was like velvet stretched over steel, one of many scattered through time. "But you survived, and so did the mark," Kai said, standing next to Kane's grim expression. Once known as Elvin, he was the guardian of the Echo. He turned against us when the repository denied him full access, believing that knowledge should be rewritten and controlled. Elvin's eyes flashed. "You call it betrayal. I call it editing," he said. "The universe is filled with suffering. Why not delete the worst chapters?" Valera raised her weapon. "You killed my mother," she said. "I freed her," Elvin added. "She was bound by order and balance. She would have lived to see it all fall apart." The vault behind them pulsed, responding not only to thoughts, but also to beliefs, emotions, and choices. Kane moved forward, his hand shaking, but his voice was firm. "I saw your vision of tranquility, with burning planets and collapsing timelines. You don't edit the pain. You bottle it and sell it under a different name." Alvin inclined his head. "And you think a scavenger, a ghost, and a half-soldier can stop me?" Kane exhaled. "To be honest, probably not. But I have some very stubborn friends and an incredibly persistent moral compass." With that, he raised his hand. The tattoo flashed, not alone this time. The marks of Valera and Kai lit up in unison, casting light like a memory reasserting itself in the present. The vault responded, strands of energy reaching out, twining around their wrists like curious vines. The ground cracked, Alvin raised his hand, and reality shifted. The camera twisted at his will, turning their memories against them. Kane saw his father, the empty eyes, the words he never said. He saw himself falling, giving up, but he gritted his teeth. "It's a good trick," he said, "but now I know who I am." He pressed his palm against the core of the vault. There was a flash, pure, soundless, blinding, then silence. After Alvin regained consciousness, he found himself on his knees in the vault. The room was filled with a soft, melodious hum. The distortion disappeared. The mark on Kane's arm turned silvery. Kai put his hand on his chest with a calm expression on his face. The loop was closed. Kane stepped back, breathing deeply. "Is it really over?" Valera lowered her weapon. "Yes, it was like that. The last time the vault was pulsing. The door opened, not physically, but maybe. A new path has appeared." The message was conveyed through thought. The guards were still there. Kai turned to them, a faint smile on his face. "I have to go," he said. "The vault still needs a voice." "Are you sure?" Kane asked. "We have snacks. They're not fresh, but they're still technically edible." Kai laughed. "You bring chaos like a gift. Stay unpredictable." And then he's gone. He disappeared into the light. As sometimes memories disappear, but they never disappear. They return to Earth, where they had left Nifris, a planet that shimmered and slowly disappeared from view. Later, when they were flying away, Nifris was hidden again, waiting for another day. The stars were circling outside, and the ship was rumbling comfortably. Kane was standing at the porthole, and Valera joined him. "You've changed," she said. He smiled, feeling tired but refreshed. "I think I've finally stopped running," he replied. "You were brave," she added. "Please don't tell anyone," he said. "It's ruining my reputation." She laughed, really laughed. "Really?" he asked, looking at her. "Doesn't that spoil her?" she warned, smiling faintly. He looked up at the stars again, which were quieter now than before. He wasn't a hero, but he had done something important, and in the vast, uncontrollable expanse of space, that was enough.